Welcome back to this video series of C++ programming. This is the lecture 17 of this video series, and today we are going to discuss about the basics of function overloading in C++ programming. Function overloading is the process of using the same name for two or more functions. That means you can give the same name to two or more functions, and then each function can execute the different functionality. That is the function overloading feature of C++ programming. Each redefinition of the function must use either different type of parameters or different number of parameters. It is a very important point. When you overload the function, each function must use either the different types of parameters, so the parameters must be of a different type, or the number of parameters are passed must be different in a number. It is only through these two differences that the compiler know which function to call in any given situation. And the third important point, two functions differing only in their return types cannot be overloaded. That means if the parameters passed to a function are same but the return types are different, then those functions cannot be overloaded. We'll talk about these 3 points with the help of an example. Here I will give you an example of addition of two numbers. The two numbers which you want to add can be of a different. For example, the numbers can be of integer type or numbers can be of floating type. If you want to add the integer types number, you have to pass the values or the numbers which are of only the integer type. Let's see, first I will create here one function. I will call this as add, and the parameters passed to this function are of integer type. So both these variables which you are going to add are of integer type. And then I will return the value from this function, which will be of integer. Here I will create one more variable, a temporary variable c, and then we'll add these two numbers and then return the value of this c variable here. Now from this main function, you can call this add function, and now we have to pass the parameters. But now the parameters must be of integer type, because in this function we are expecting the types to be of integer. But if you pass the any other types, say for example if you pass any fractional values or floating values, then it will just eliminate those fractional parts and it will take only the non-fractional values, and with cout will print the output on the console window. Now if you want to add the values which are of a floating type, the two numbers which are of floating types, then what you have to do, you have to add one more function, right? In C++, you have to add the function, but with the help of overloading feature, you can give that function name as the same. But only thing you have to change is the arguments. Now in this case, we'll give this argument as a double. That means I'm expecting the number to be here of a floating type, and same in this temporary variable. Now I can call this additional function, but this time I can pass parameters which are of a fractional type or a floating type. Now let's compile this program. Here we put this new line statement. Now let's run this program and see what does it outputs. So you can see here it is printing the first value as a 95 and second as a 96.23. You can see you can evaluate the results by looking at these two numbers. So we saw how we can overload the function. In this we overloaded this additional function. The name of function is the same. Our purpose is to add the numbers, and then to satisfy that function we must give the same name, but each function then executing the different functionality. One is adding the integer numbers, another is adding the double numbers. So this is a very powerful feature of C++ programming, and it provides a more flexibility for users. We talked the second point. Each redefinition of the function must use either different type of parameters or different number of parameters. That means when you are overloading the functions, each function must use the different types of parameters. So here we are using the different types. And another way to overload the function, suppose now if this both the parameters are of an integer type, then this will not overload the function. But if you add one more parameter here, and here you have to pass the additional value. Now both the functions are adding the integer numbers, but in first function we are passing the three parameters, so we are adding the three numbers. But in case of second function we are adding just two numbers. Now this also becomes a function overloading. Both these functions now are overloaded and each execute the different functionality. If you compile the program, then it must output the different values as you can see here. And the third point we discussed, the two functions differing only in their return types cannot be overloaded. That means, now in this case, the return types are same. But if you suppose in this case, if you keep a return type as float, and then you are returning the variable of which is of a float. Now in this case, the compiler will not compile this program. It will show the error as cannot overload the function distinguished by their return type alone. That means you cannot overload the function only based on their return types. The overloading should happen based on their parameters. So this is about the function overloading. Similar to these functions, you can overload the constructor. As we talked in the topic of constructor and destructor, you can give the same name for uh, the constructor function. Let's see, let's revise that thing again. Now here I will create one class and call this as my class, and here we'll create an object of that class. As you know, when you create an object, the constructor function is called if one is present. Here we'll create one constructor function, and, I will print the value, print the output as a constructor one in this using this here object. When you create this object, by default, this constructor function will be called. Now, this is a parameterless object. That means we are not initializing or we are not passing anything to this object. By default, this the constructor, which is a parameterless constructor, will be called. If you create any another object and if you're passing any value to that object, now this becomes a parameterized I mean in this case you need another constructor which can takes the parameters. The compiler will give error, that is there is no constructor which matches of these parameters. So you have to create the another constructor function which can take that parameter. And in this case this first constructor will be called, in this case the second parameterized constructor will be called. This is now becomes a constructor overloading. Similar to a function overloading, this is now called as constructor overloading. That means we are keeping the name of this constructor as the same, but inside this we are executing the different functionality. If you compile this program and run it, you can see it is outputting the values, the strings as a constructor 1 and a constructor 2. Alright, so I think we talked about the basics of function overloading in this video. I hope now you have understood the concepts of function overloading. So thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for the upcoming video.